The federal government is launching a new agency to manage the purchasing and delivery of military equipment. The Defense Investment Agency, or DIA, is going to be a special operating division of Public Works, and its aim is to consolidate and accelerate the procurement process so that Canadian Armed Forces can get the tools they need when they need them. For more on this major move, we are joined by David Perry. He's the president of the Canadian Global Affairs Institute, and he's joining us from Ottawa this morning. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So give us an example of the type of problem that this agency is aiming to fix.
So part of the dynamic we have right now is that responsibility for procurement is split out across three major organizations in the federal government and then a number of other smaller ones. And one of the objectives of this new agency is to try and consolidate a bunch of these functions into one single place where things will be analyzed, decisions will be taken, and bring together people from across the government with one organization to get some more synergy and efficiency between people that are currently split out across a whole bunch of places in the National Capital Region.
My understanding is that this agency is for procurement of things that cost $100 million or more. If that's correct, what kinds of projects will they be looking for?
So a whole bunch of things, projects for Army vehicles, probably submarines, airplanes for the Air Force. I think what it means is that you're not going to get small projects for things that it would be a lot harder to think of an example of, and not some of the more mundane things that the Department of National Defense buys, because while it does buy a whole bunch of different types of armaments that are very expensive, very complicated, it also purchases, office furniture, has contracts for cutting the grass, that kind of thing, and that's not going to be part of this new entity.
Both the Liberal and Conservative governments have considered making a similar agency in the past. You know, one of the things I asked you off the top was what kind of problem it fixes, and one of those problems has been the fact that they'll order something and sometimes it doesn't come for a decade later. Why did this Liberal government decide to take this project on, start this agency now?
Well, my read of it is that Mr. Carney wants to get a different outcome through Canada's defense procurement efforts than the one we've had before, and he cares enough about it that he's willing to reorganize the way the federal government works to actually acquire things for our military. I think the basic issue that has happened before is that governments have looked at the procurement system, potential moves, and basically not been willing enough to take a bold move like this to invest, what's to be clear is probably going to be a bunch of challenges that need to be overcome in terms of moving people around the government, creating a new organization, getting it up and fully running, all of which will take some time. Previous governments haven't wanted to affect significant change the way that I interpret Mr. Carney does, having campaigned on doing this and now is actually coming forward and delivering on a pretty significant change to the way that we've approached this, which would be adapting processes and an organizational structure that's existed for over half a century now.
So consolidation usually means job cuts. So is this agency going to cut or create jobs, and is it going to cost Canadians more money?
I haven't seen any evidence that it would be reducing functions. I think from conversations I've heard, the only thing that's actually in discussion right now is potentially adding staff with specialized skill sets. It's more of a function of, you have three main departments between National Defense, the Procurement Services Department, and Industry Canada that have the core responsibilities for defense. And then there's another half dozen other parts of the federal government involved in this. I think the idea is more that you would take the staff that are working for a different minister in a different building and bring them all together under one organization and have them hopefully meet together in real life and not just their teams meetings.
How will this agency fulfill the goal of to buying Canadian, of looking for Canadian projects, buying Canadian, and becoming less reliant on the U.S.?
Well, I think that's one of the things that I'm going to be most interested in watching, see how it unfolds. So one of those departments I just mentioned, the Industry Department, has responsibility for delivering economic benefits to Canada right now through a particular policy mechanism called the Industrial Technological Benefits Policy. I don't know where the government is in looking at some of the other things Mr. Carney's talked about, which is developing a defense industrial strategy, which would have some other mechanisms to try and use military investment to create economic benefits in Canada, to develop Canadian companies, skill Canadian workers, provide for economic growth through innovation tied into defense investments. And there's a number of other initiatives that are being discussed that will come at some point. my sense of the agency and the fact that it was named the Defense Investment Agency, not just Defense Procurement Agency, is they're looking to provide more of a cohesive, coordinated function that would try and better integrate some of those economic policy objectives with other defense considerations and the other procurement considerations for things like value for money and fairness. But to try and do that in a more organized and a more purposeful way that would have as a core objective developing a stronger defense and wider economic base here in Canada.
David Perry, great to have you joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me on.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.